Hi, I'm Adam,
This is Kevin.
and we are Tech Guys Who Invest. This is the place for business people and investors to learn all about investing. We offer a fresh perspective on what it's like to have a day job while investing, and we share lessons learned on our investing journey. Our vision is to educate and entertain you while adding tons of value to your daily commute. Welcome to our show.
We are back with another episode of the Tech Guys Who Invest podcast. On this episode, we do things a little bit differently. Normally, we talk about ways that you can be more productive, ways that you can become a better investor. But what happens, especially given what's happening right now in April 2020, everything with the shelter in place, being quarantined inside, what happens with this extra time and you just don't feel like doing things? Well, sometimes you will experience that. It might be because of burnout. It might be because you're not doing the right thing, or you just don't know how to move forward. And all of those things, sometimes it's okay to just take a break. So we wanted to share the exact sentiments that we've been feeling throughout this whole process, to know that you're not alone. And if you need the permission to not do anything, take it from us. So without further ado, here's that episode. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Tech Guys Who Invest podcast, where each week we teach you how to invest wisely and safely. Although this particular episode, we're doing something a bit different. We're kind of going to be a little bit transparent about how we're feeling with this whole coronavirus, and just our productivity seems to be slumping. But we also wanted to express that, hey, in this particular extenuating circumstance, it's okay. Don't beat yourself up over it. In particular. But one thing we also did want to mention is that every Friday we release emails that go into our subscribers, and we call them TGWI Insiders. In that email, you will get additional value nuggets that we're providing, whether it's how we analyze risk, whether it's what pieces of technology are making our lives easier that you can leverage also, or different articles we come across. It could be candid videos from Adam or I. We're just trying to find ways to add additional value to our loyal listeners. So if you want to be a part of that, go to subscribe.tgwipodcast.com. So Adam, let's talk about what we've been feeling. We brought this up kind of candidly in conversation, so I'd love to hear what you're experiencing through this whole thing.
Yeah, I think everybody feels different right now in some way because our condition, our circumstances have completely changed on us, right? And what you and I were talking about is kind of like how we feel right now, and how others must be experiencing the same thing. One of the things that we had mentioned was, sometimes I don't feel as motivated or as productive, maybe, and then we both said how we felt guilty about that, and then would kind of, because we're both really action takers. We both try to be high achievers, and we're trying to make things happen. So then when you feel like you're not productive, or you feel like, man, I should be doing something, but things just kind of feel odd and you sort of need a rest, then you feel guilty, right? And we both were saying, hey, I don't think you should feel guilty. I think you should allow yourself the time you need right now.
I agree. I was listening to a good podcast from the Tim Ferriss show. I think it's from Dr. Vivek, one of the most recent ones, former U.S. Surgeon General. And one of the things he was talking about is he was experiencing people who are on there, helping them kind of transition to the next life, so to speak, when he was in his residency and that experiencing death in that regard. And it was weird that came about when I was feeling this kind of funky thing. And ultimately what he was saying is, when the people were there on their last leg of life, they weren't talking about how much wealth they accumulated. They weren't talking about what material things they had or what promotion they got X number of years ago. It was the quality of the relationships they had. And that was an interesting reminder of what you're working towards. And even if you have all the right anchors, even if you have the vision board, and you're doing all the good habits, sometimes you're just going to feel burnt out. And that's okay.
Yeah, I think that's important to let people know, almost to give people permission to do that, to take a little break. It's actually healthy to do that. So whether it's right now or some other time, if you feel yourself feeling that burned out feeling, you should take a break. Or if you feel like your life's out of balance, I guess that's probably a good way to look at it is
Right.
feel like my life's out of balance. Am I always focusing on this one thing? And then now I'm starting to get burned out on it. Well, that's probably an indicator. You need to introduce some balance into your life. And that may mean taking a little break, take the foot off the gas for a little while.
And I was talking to a friend and listener of the show. They were talking about how when you experience the burnout, it almost feels too late. Like there's no, oh man, these are the checklist of things that are happening that are telling me I should take a break. So that when you reach the point of I really need to take a break, you're pretty much burnt out at that point.
That's really, I like that a lot, and I've never thought about that. But now that you're saying it, it'd be neat to put together some markers so you catch yourself getting there. Cause I do agree with that thought. I have felt that way before. And if you have some kind of markers where you can catch yourself, then you could take a little pause and not let yourself get burned out before you get there.
Yeah. And one thing that I've been experiencing is when I think about why I'm procrastination, I always try to analyze why. Am I scared of this? Why am I feeling lazy? What's going on here? Is it the fear of the unknown? Why am I procrastinating? I think is also something you can use the time to figure out too. Just there's this I got to keep going, got to keep going, got to keep going. But then you're never really thinking about why things are being done. And for me, when I feel myself in that burnout where I'm procrastinating, doing absolutely everything else but what I need to do, I try to take a step back. Because when I think about why I'm procrastinating, it helps me realign where I'm at mentally as well.
Yeah, I think that's important. Now, the other side of the coin is if you are doing a lot of procrastinating and you analyze your situation like you just suggested, and you realize, well, I'm not really burnt out. I'm just feeling pretty unmotivated, or I'm feeling kind of lazy, and I'm just not making myself go. I think that's different. I think you should recognize that the same way
Right.
as you do with the opposite condition, and take action towards that, and
Hmm.
realize, hey, I would actually feel better if I did accomplish some things in that situation.
Yeah, that's another thing too is breaking down what you're trying to achieve in the smallest detail, getting that little win that I think we've talked about in the past. Same thing with
Mhm.
investing, right? As you're progressing towards financial freedom, not everything is going to generate $1,000 a monthly income, which I don't know very many things that do. But my point being is that $50 of passive income, you're basically chunking away at it, and the same holds true to whatever you're trying to accomplish. Break it down as small as possible, and that could be the priority for the day. If you're thinking, oh, I have to analyze this deal, then break down the exact process that you want to do it at, and that could be enough for the day. So I think there's also recognizing that you've done something is something I've struggled with. You get this feeling of I didn't do enough today. And then when you sit and journal or whatever, reflect on the day, like, oh yeah, this is what I did today, and I'm proud of that. I can end the day feeling proud that I've accomplished something.
I find doing a little weekly plan. So I plan on multiple levels,
Nice.
and doing a little monthly, weekly, and daily plan helps with this quite a lot. So if you do, let's say you're taking your weekly plan, and over the weekend you look at what you want to accomplish in the next week, and you just write down a few things. Like if I accomplished uh, these few things, I would feel like I really made progress and moved the needle towards my goals. Then each day, when you're starting your day, if you take just a few minutes and kind of go over that plan and say, okay, well, what do I want to do today to move towards that? And if you can have a few things that you write down that you accomplish each day, then when you start feeling either of the ways we've been talking about, you could kind of look at your plan and
Yeah.
say, actually, I got more done than I thought I would. Or I've noticed that I'm overworking myself right now. I've looked at all the things I've been doing. It's too much. I need to slow down a little and put some balance in my life here, focus on some other things. Either way, that kind of helps you maintain the balance we're talking about.
Yeah. Another thing that I've done is when I talk about reflecting on the day, I've tried to implement a nighttime routine. It's similar to Savers. But basically I'm not doing the exercise part. I meditate at night, even if it's just 3 minutes, just close my eyes and breathe through the day or whatever. I look at my affirmations, I visualize how the day went, visualize looking at my vision board, then I'll also journal. And I think for me, that clears my mind and it allows me to reflect. When I journal at night, I think about 3 things that went well, 3 things that I want to be better, and what my approach will be for the day. And when I do look at what went well, it's like, oh yeah, I really did accomplish more than I thought.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, I think that's some really good advice there. Now, Kevin, what do you find yourself doing with your time when you've got some extra time? Because we're at home now, we don't have the commute factored in and errands or other things where you have to go out so much. There's more time at home for sure. What do you find yourself doing with the extra time?
One thing I try to do is because we're not going out to do errands, I try to get out somehow, whether that's go for a run or go for a walk. And
Mhm.
when I go for the walk or the run, I listen to podcasts because what I'm finding, and our listeners might be experiencing the same thing, is without the commute for errands or just driving around, I'm listening to fewer podcasts. So getting out kind of serves 2 purposes for me there. Another thing that I've been doing is leveraging technology to video chat. I'm seeing a lot of people do virtual happy hours and stuff. And the 2 consecutive weeks we've video chatted my family, Stephanie's family, and that's been a lot of fun maintaining those relationships and leveraging technology at that capacity. How about you guys?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. We've done some of the same. We've been taking we get outdoors pretty often, but we've been taking a lot of walks and some bike rides and things like that. Also, I've been reading a lot.
Nice.
I like to read anyway, but I feel like I've had a little bit more time for that. So yeah, that's what I find myself doing in addition to just working more.
Yeah. And that's another
Both.
thing too. Speaking of reading, I know that if you are thinking about investing or you're in the personal development, and there's books that you feel like you should read, the Rich Dad Poor Dad, whatever that list may be, the top 10 books that teach you about financial education. If you don't feel like reading that, that's also okay. If you want to read a sci-fi or you want to read a Tom Clancy type of book, then do it. Like that should be something that you should also indulge in, because for me, what I experience is when I come back to whatever I'm reading, like what I feel like I have to be studying, it helps refresh me at that point as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I definitely fall into that camp where I feel like if I'm not always reading some nonfiction thing that's growing me in some way, I kind
Right.
of feel guilty
Yeah.
reading some. It's weird the things that we do to ourselves, right? Why can't I just let myself read an occasional Tom Clancy or Robert Ludlum type book that I enjoy? Sometimes I do. And actually, over this break, we took spring break, even though we really didn't go anywhere. Um, and I did read one. I read a Clancy book and really enjoyed it. So,
That's good.
speaking of, if you do want something educational, but that's pretty light, easy reading, yet very informative, our ebook is a really good read and super fast and very informative. So you can find that on our website, uh, tgwipodcast.com. You can go directly to the ebook page, ebook.tgwipodcast.com, and check it out. The cool thing about that is one of the questions, our ebook, if you haven't read it, has 5 questions we asked really experienced investors who happen to have been previous guests on our show. Some of the top most experienced investors in the nation. And we asked them 5 questions. But one of the questions was, how would you prepare for the upcoming crash? Or, what advice might you have to prepare for it? That kind of thing. Really interesting to see their answers and then see where we are right now amidst you know, the coronavirus situation we're in. So.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I've had multiple people ask me, what should I do now with everything that's happening? And I try to ask more questions because there's not like a one answer fits all in this whole situation. But I do think I highly recommend reading the ebook because more experienced investors than Adam or I have provided strategies and tips that are super relevant today. So go ahead and check out that ebook. And we're thinking of doing some type of an online cash flow game. So we'll keep you posted on that. But we want to keep kind of keeping those skills of generating wealth and income. We want to have some fun doing it. So it'd be a great way to connect with our listeners. So we'll keep you all posted on that. But if you're feeling like you don't want to be productive or you're lacking that motivation, maybe take a break, and that's okay. And if you want to chat just about, I don't know, anything, you can reach out to us, techguyswhoinvest@gmail.com.
Also, if you guys have questions or suggested topics, especially during this time, we would really love to hear that, and we'll work some of that in. So send those over to our email address, and we'll try to work some of that in.
Thanks, everybody.
That's it for this episode of Tech Guys Who Invest. This is Adam.
And this is Kevin. Thank you so much for listening to us. Don't forget to join our Facebook page where we're building a community of investors so that we can share ideas, tips, and other ways to help us get out of the rat race. If you found value in this podcast, it would mean the world to us if you could share it with your network. Lastly, we love feedback. It's how we get better. So if you wouldn't mind spending 30 seconds and leaving us an honest review on iTunes or Stitcher or whatever platform you're using, that would be super sweet. If you want to get on Adam or Kevin's calendar, go to tgwipodcast.com/contact. We want to help you invest safely, wisely, and ultimately get you out of the rat race. Thanks again.
So I got a phone call from one of my tenants the other day, and he actually went out of town for a couple days and came back. Someone ran over his mailbox. Like, what the heck? There were tracks in the yard where they had skidded off the road, plowed over his mailbox, and then clearly had some trouble getting out of the yard. So, spun and tore up the grass getting out of there. And of course, took off. And he's a very responsible tenant. He's a really good tenant. And, filed a police report and all that stuff. And it's just, I'm just like, really? I mean, so what happened there? Some drunk idiot out there going way too fast down that street, lost control.
Well, I'm glad it was the mailbox and nothing else.
I mean, man, you just never know, right?
Right.
And with everything else going on, it's just like, really? One more idiot out there.
Yeah, and it's also like, shouldn't you be home anyway? If you're gonna drink, at least be home and do the shelter in place. Like, come on.
But that's no fun.
I know, apparently.
Oh gosh.
Don't drink and drive. We do not condone that at all, ever.
Yeah, don't do that, and don't run over mailboxes, especially if I own the property.